There is a man you have seen before. He drives a leased Lamborghini Urus through a city he cannot afford to own property in. His watch costs more than most people earn in a year. His Instagram is curated with the precision of a marketing agency. His table at the restaurant is always near the window, always visible. He looks wealthy. He is not. Now consider another man. He arrives in a 10-year-old Lexus LS, dark color, clean, unremarkable. He wears no watch you would recognize. He sits at a corner table, away from the room. He orders without looking at the menu. He has eaten here for 20 years. He owns the building. Why do we consistently confuse the performance of wealth with wealth itself? This confusion is not accidental. It is engineered. And understanding who benefits from that engineering is the first step toward thinking clearly about money, taste, and the quiet discipline that actually builds lasting financial power. Wealth culture, as most people experience it, is a retail product. It is sold through aspiration, through imagery, through the carefully constructed idea that if you consume what wealthy people consume, you will become what they are. The luxury industry understands human psychology with extraordinary precision. It knows that the desire to belong, to signal, to be perceived as successful is one of the most powerful forces in human behavior, and it monetizes that desire completely. Consider the car market. A young professional saves aggressively for 2 years and purchases a new BMW 5 Series. He believes this is a sound decision. He believes he has entered a certain tier. What he has actually done is transfer a significant portion of his accumulated capital into a depreciating asset, taken on monthly obligations that constrain his financial flexibility, and begun a psychological cycle that demands he maintain this image indefinitely. The BMW must be followed by another BMW, or something better. The habit is now installed. Contrast this with a pattern common among the genuinely wealthy. Many serious collectors and long-term wealth holders purchase cars like the early 1990s Mercedes-Benz S-Class W140, heavy, quiet, over-engineered to a degree that bordered on obsessive. They buy them used. They maintain them meticulously. They drive them for a decade. These cars do not announce anything. They simply work. They reflect a relationship with objects that is about utility, quality, and longevity, rather than perception. What does it mean when a man's possessions are chosen for how they serve him, rather than how others see them? The wealthy individual answers only to himself in this regard. He has severed the psychological cord between his self-worth and his visible consumption. This severance is not natural. It is cultivated, and it is one of the most important financial acts a person can perform. Expensive habits by their nature create dependency. They establish a lifestyle floor that rises over time but rarely descends. The human mind adapts quickly to comfort and slowly retreats from it. A man who begins flying business class will find economy increasingly unbearable. A woman who becomes accustomed to a particular suite at a particular hotel in a particular city will find lesser accommodation genuinely distressing. These are not moral failures. They are predictable neurological responses. But they are financially catastrophic when confused with investment. Here is where the conversation becomes uncomfortable. Most people who believe they are building wealth through their lifestyle are in fact dismantling it. The psychology of expensive habits is seductive precisely because it feels like progress. Spending on quality feels responsible. Spending on experiences feels enlightened. Spending on the right brands feels like cultural literacy. These are the stories the spending tells itself, and they are told with great conviction. But consider what the numbers reveal. A man who spends an additional $3,000 per month maintaining a lifestyle designed to signal success, the car upgrade, the club membership, the wardrobe refresh, the restaurant appearances, over a decade has not spent $36,000. He has spent $36,000 and everything that capital could have compounded into. At modest returns, that figure becomes something that genuinely changes the architecture of a life. The wealthy understand compounding not as a financial concept, but as a philosophical one. They understand that every expenditure is a choice about time. Money spent on performance is time stolen from freedom. This is not abstraction. It is the actual mechanism by which wealth either accumulates or evaporates quietly over years, while the person believes they are living well. Now consider the car example once more, because it reveals something important. A man of genuine means, not new money, not recently liquid, but generationally comfortable, does not think about his car the way the aspirational class does. He may drive a Porsche 911, but it is likely a model from the 1980s or early 1990s, purchased deliberately, maintained with care, and appreciated in value over the years he has owned it. He did not buy it to be seen in it. He bought it because he understands mechanical beauty, because it gives him pleasure in private, because he knows exactly what it is. He also knows what it is not. It is not identity, it is not status, it is not proof of anything. This distinction between an object chosen for private meaning and an object chosen for public performance is the fault line between wealth building and wealth consuming. What does a man reveal about his relationship with money when he needs others to witness his spending?
The answer is that he reveals insecurity. Not cruelty, not stupidity. Insecurity. A deep, persistent uncertainty about his own standing that requires constant external confirmation. The luxury industry is built entirely on this insecurity. It does not create it. It simply finds it, names it, and sells it back to the person at an extraordinary markup. The ultra-wealthy, by and large, have resolved this insecurity. Not through wealth itself. Wealth alone does not resolve it, but through a different relationship with identity. They know who they are without their possessions confirming it. This psychological groundedness is not a consequence of wealth. In many cases, it is a precondition for it. The real habit of the wealthy is not expensive. It is invisible. It is the habit of patience, of restraint, of consistently choosing the less visible option when the visible option offers only perception, and the invisible option offers actual value. It is the habit of separating want from need with clinical precision, not because they cannot afford what they want, but because they refuse to be controlled by wanting. Old European money has a phrase that translates roughly as, spend on what lasts, ignore what announces. It is not romanticism, it is strategy. A strategy refined over generations by families who understood that visible wealth invites interference, social, legal, political, while quiet wealth compounds undisturbed. This is why the most serious collectors of fine automobiles are rarely seen. A man with a private collection containing a 1960s Ferrari 275, a pre-war Bugatti, and a handful of significant post-war German cars does not post these things. He does not attend events where they might be photographed. He stores them correctly, insures them quietly, and watches them appreciate with the patience of someone who has no need to be believed. He is not hiding. He simply has no audience he needs to perform for. This is the psychological destination that expensive habits prevent you from reaching, because expensive habits require an audience. They are fundamentally performative, and performance is exhausting. It is financially exhausting, yes, but more importantly, it is psychologically exhausting. It keeps a person permanently oriented toward the outside world, toward perception, comparison, validation, and permanently distracted from the interior work of actually building something. What would your financial life look like if no one was watching? This question is not rhetorical. It is diagnostic. The answer reveals the degree to which your spending is driven by genuine preference versus the need for external confirmation. For most people, the honest answer is unsettling, because most people, if they are truthful, would spend differently in private. They would keep the older car. They would choose the quieter hotel. They would wear the watch with no recognizable logo. The gap between how you would spend privately and how you actually spend is the exact cost of your audience. There is a specific type of man who builds serious, lasting wealth. He is not easily described because he is not easily visible. He does not appear in the places wealth is performed. He is not at the opening. He is not at the table near the window. He is not driving something that requires a second glance. He is working. He is thinking. He is compounding. His car is chosen for how it drives, not how it looks in a photograph. Perhaps a well-kept older Range Rover Classic because he likes the simplicity of it. Perhaps a Japanese sedan from the early 2000s because it has never once failed him, and he respects that kind of reliability. He does not explain these choices. He does not defend them. He is not interested in your interpretation of them. His home is comfortable and considered, not large for the sake of largeness, not decorated to impress people he does not particularly like. It reflects him, privately, without apology. His habits, the actual daily practices of his life, are oriented toward creation, preservation, and growth. He reads seriously. He sleeps well. He exercises without making it a public event. He eats simply, with quality, without theater. He has understood something that takes most people their entire lives to approach, if they approach it at all. That wealth is not a lifestyle. It is a posture, an internal orientation toward time, capital, and value that has almost nothing to do with what you drive or where you are seen. Expensive habits do not create wealth because they solve the wrong problem. They address the feeling of scarcity, the fear of being perceived as less, by spending. But spending never resolves scarcity. It deepens it. It keeps the wound open. It keeps the person performing. The wealthy stopped performing. That is, in the end, the most expensive thing they ever gave up, and the most valuable. Wealth is not what you display. It is what remains when the audience leaves.